into her shoulder. I finished the last sketchy lines of her own front legs curled around me. Sniffling, I sat back from my sketch, seeing Doc Minstrel cast a glance down. The couch now held a few drawings that had helped me remember. Minstrel had been a good listener.
Well, that explained the wound you had on your shoulder there, Merc.
His voice was slow, watching me glance at the bandages on my shoulder. There were still red marks of blood seeping through them. Remembering the feeling of the weapon puncturing my flesh, I shivered.
That Glim girl probably saved your life with the healing potion to stem the bleeding. Kill off the infection, too. Them raiders have filthy weapons, as good as any poison, really, if untreated. Still, brave move you folks did to make your escape. Still in their wagon? Reminds me of my younger days in the wastes.
I listened to him only slightly, sighing as I glanced back at Glimmerlight and myself in my sketch. Where were my friends? I hadn't properly felt like I missed any pony since my mother, but now they were somewhere out there without me. Did they escape? Were they taken back? Brimstone had he disappeared and... Wincing, my hoof gently went to my head. With a groan, I settled back down. Apparently, furrowing my brow in concern was enough to hurt that scar. Doc Minstrel patted my shoulder, getting up.
You've had a rough time, but don't try and force it. A little memory fuzziness isn't entirely uncommon with traumatic head injuries. Really. Give yourself a bit longer for the healing potions to work, and stay safe for a while, and you should be right as rain.
If only I shared that. The mirror sat across the couch now, but every glance, every half-hearted look only reminded me of the horrible shared features. I wasn't going to be his. No matter what he said or what happened.
Now look, that's only one of your problems. You're badly malnourished. How much have you had to eat this last week?
Half a can of beans, a small apple stew, and some bits of oatmeal. Minstrel seemed to stop, his mouth hanging open as if he expected me to go on. Eventually, I saw his eyes glance down to my stomach, before tutting and shaking his head.
We better get something in you. Healing process works better on a stomach that isn't eating itself out of hunger. No wonder you're so small if you didn't get those nutrients while growing up. Let's get you up and over to the table.
He moved alongside me, wrapping hooves across my torso and nodding ready. Taking a few breaths, I edged off to the side, dropping my 2 left hooves to the ground and... Oh! The light seemed to blur in the air, my vision becoming blurry and indistinct. The scar ached, feeling like my skull was shifting as my body took responsibility for my balance once again. Falling against Doc Minstrel, I let him support my weight until the moment passed. I saw him pick up my journal for me.
That's it. Won't be easy for a few minutes. Just trot it off. Gently does it.
Step after hesitant, limping step, I moved across the room. Little sound emerged from outside, just the wind and the banging of shutters on his home. Every window was covered for warmth. The 10-foot journey to a cushion on the floor felt like I had run for the wall all over again, and I gratefully sat back on my haunches to lean on the table to breathe. I don't feel well.
'Cause you got nothing in you to sustain activity, little Merc. Your stomach's trying to digest stuff that ain't there. Just sit there a second.
He left towards a musty old kitchen down the corridor of the house. Left alone, I pondered, looking around. Doc Minstrel was fairly well off. The home was cozy, seemingly secure, and somewhat comfortable. Probably why I hadn't yet properly grasped my freedom was the lack of a view outside. My thoughts drifted to Glimmer and Brim again, but no answers could come of it. Maybe when I began to remember more of what happened... I heard Minstrel approaching again. A plate of dry-looking biscuits beside stale fruit was laid before me. I hadn't expected much. The wasteland was never going to be easy for food, but at least it was better than the vomit-inducing slimy oatmeal Whiplash had fed me. Sitting opposite me, Minstrel smiled gently. I sat and stared back, glancing at the food every so often.
Is something wrong, Merc?
My voice faltered. I realized I'd been waiting for him to permit me to eat, treating him as a master. It took me some effort to bite down the wave of upsetting feelings that caused and get to the food before me. No, nothing's wrong. Minstrel didn't sound convinced, nodding after a few seconds. Clearly he was rather perceptive of mental states.
You have to learn to be your own buck, Merc. Out here, no pony's gonna tell you what you need to do to survive all the time.
It's hard. I don't know how. Even with my friends I just followed usually. All my life, master and slave, command and follow. But now I don't know what I should do. I thought it'd all come to me.
Don't worry for now. We'll come back to that. Just eat.
Without much hesitation, I dug in. I felt my shrunken stomach bulge a little with the amount. Still less than a normal pony would feel sated with, I imagined. While listening to Minstrel telling me of himself, apparently he made a living by selling things he found in the ruins of Philadelphia, using battles between Red-Eye and the Rangers as cover to sneak in and out. These days his assistant Sonny did the job far more often. Between the two of them, they could fix things up to sell for a higher price. The goal, however, was to eventually sell enough to relocate off towards the central wastes where it was much safer. Apparently, that wouldn't be too long from now. He seemed hopeful. To tell the truth, though, I only barely listened. My eyes were focused either on the food or the windows that I kept trying to imagine the expansive wasteland behind. What would be the first thing I would see? The great valleys that led towards Manhattan? An old town safe to wander around in? But really, it was fear that drove me to think and worry to distraction. The master could be spreading out to hunt for me, those shackles and collars of his clinking at his side, ready to... I needed to get going. I can't wait around here too long. Red-Eye might come to look for me. Or my master. Minstrel sighed, reaching across to my good shoulder again.
You don't have a master now, Merc. I think you're going to have to take time to get used to that. Now, where do you think you'll go?
My mouth opened, but no words came out. I didn't know. Where was I supposed to go? Which direction? What was my goal? Sickeningly, I felt part of my mind wish some pony would tell me what to do. Fighting the revulsion, I just screwed my eyes shut, lowering my head.
Well, gather your thoughts, whether it's to hunt for your friends or whatever, but you're safe here. Red-Eye's cronies never come here. Too off the beaten track, if you get me. Let's just take our time and get you ready to move, and I'll help you remember just what happened before good old Sonny found you, alright? Best wait till Sonny is back here anyways. She might know something about your friends.
Briefly, my mind rebelled that I was only nodding because he had told me what to do. Sniffling, I pulled across my journal from where he had left it. I don't want to be a slave, but I can't stop thinking it.
Just take your time and draw, Merc. There's no rush now. I'm not going to whip you for not doing something immediately.
His voice was calming, allowing me to sniff sharply and open a new page. We were escaping in the wagon. Thick black lines appeared, the outline of the wagon hurtling under Brimstone's power, the steely look of determination tinged with fury in his face. Moving aside, I began to draw other shapes around us. In the air, rangers and griffins. The rangers ignored us, but the griffins started dropping bombs and mines. With strong, sudden draws of charcoal, the explosion filled the ground in front of the wagon, casting